Imagine discovering that your own father, one of America's most powerful men, is your greatest enemy. Richard Caldwell built a $3 billion empire, but there's one person he hates more than any competitor: his own son. This is the story of how an arrogant billionaire tried to destroy his own flesh and blood, but karma had other plans. Oh, if you're thinking, wow, what a horrible father, you haven't seen anything yet. Stick around because this story has more twists than a roller coaster. Richard Caldwell, 58 years old, CEO of Caldwell Industries, a conglomerate that dominates everything from technology to renewable energy. A cold, calculating man obsessed with his public image. Lives in a $15 million Hampton mansion, attends charity dinners solely for networking, and his life is an eternal performance for financial media. Michael Thompson, 28 years old, Richard's unacknowledged son. Works as a junior analyst at Caldwell Industries itself, but using his mother's surname. Lives in a modest Queens apartment, takes the subway every day, and no one at the company knows he's the CEO's son. Intelligent, hardworking, ethical, everything Richard pretends to be publicly. 29 years ago, Richard was an ambitious young businessman, married to Patricia Caldwell, a wealthy socialite who helped finance his early ventures. But he had an affair with Elena Thompson, a humble nurse who worked at the hospital where Patricia was admitted during severe depression. When Elena got pregnant, Richard pressured her to have an abortion. She refused. Richard then offered money for her to disappear and never reveal the paternity. Elena, pregnant and without resources, accepted $50,000 and a lifetime silence agreement. Michael grew up knowing who his father was, but promised his mother never to reveal it. Elena died of cancer when he was 20, leaving only a letter explaining everything and encouraging him to pursue his dreams, regardless of who his father was. Michael got a job at Caldwell Industries on his own merit, MIT graduate with honors, Wharton MBA. But Richard, who discovered his identity through private investigators, began a subtle campaign to destroy him. The psychological warfare was methodical and cruel. Michael presents an innovative solar energy project that could generate millions. Richard rejects it in a public meeting, calling him an inexperienced dreamer, then steals the idea and implements it 6 months later. Every time Michael is about to be promoted, Richard secretly intervenes, inventing excuses or creating emergencies that prevent advancement. Richard deliberately puts Michael on impossible projects, expecting him to fail, but Michael always finds creative solutions, frustrating his father even more. In meetings, Richard makes cutting comments about employees who think they deserve more than they've earned, looking directly at Michael. During the day, Richard is celebrated as a self-made man who values hard work. He gives lectures about meritocracy, writes articles about building your own path, and is on Forbes' cover as CEO of the Year. But at night, he's consumed by paranoia. What if someone discovers Michael? What if the secret leaks and destroys his image as a perfect family man? Patricia never knew about the affair, and Richard lives tormented by guilt and fear. This paranoia transforms into growing cruelty toward Michael. The more his son excels professionally, the more Richard hates him because Michael represents everything he isn't: genuinely talented, ethical, and loved by colleagues for his character, not his power. 3 years working at the company, Michael finally gets a real opportunity, leading the international expansion project, a chance to show his true worth. He works 18 hours a day for months, creating a brilliant strategy that impresses all executives. At the final presentation, with all directors present, Richard publicly humiliates Michael. "Mr. Thompson, this project is full of flaws. You clearly don't have the experience to lead something of this magnitude. I'll transfer responsibility to someone more capable." Michael, for the first time, fights back in front of everyone. "Mr. Caldwell, with all due respect, what exactly are these flaws? Because by the numbers and market research, this project has potential to increase our revenue by 40%. Richard, enraged at being challenged, makes the mistake that will change everything. "Maybe if you had grown up with proper privileges, you'd better understand how real business works." The comment is recorded by an employee who was filming the presentation for archives. The phrase sounds strange, as if Richard knew something personal about Michael. 2 weeks later, Caldwell Industries is shaken by a massive scandal. Leaked internal documents reveal that Richard has been using company funds to illegally finance political campaigns, plus tax evasion schemes that cost public coffers over $200 million. The SEC opens an immediate investigation. Company stocks plummet 60% in 3 days. Major investors begin withdrawing. National media surrounds Richard like vultures. Worse, Patricia discovers that Richard used the couple's joint accounts for some illegal transactions. She could be indicted as an accomplice. Furious and betrayed, she files for divorce and threatens to provide more evidence to authorities. With the company collapsing and his reputation destroyed, Richard needs a miracle to avoid total bankruptcy. Lawyers suggest complete leadership restructuring and implementing new projects to restore investor confidence. Enter Michael's solar energy project, the one Richard had stolen and partially implemented. The project was an initial success, but needs urgent expansion to generate capital necessary to save the company. The problem? Michael was the only one who truly understood all technical and strategic aspects. Richard implemented only the surface, and now needs his son's complete expertise to avoid losing everything. The board of directors, desperate, suggests promoting Michael Thompson to Director of Strategic Development. He's the only one with internal credibility to lead the recovery. Richard is forced to swallow his pride and approach Michael. The scene happens in Michael's office, finally a real office, no longer a cubicle, at dusk, with New York City glowing through the windows. "Michael, we need to talk." "Sure, Mr. Caldwell." "About the international expansion project?" "About everything. The company is going through a difficult time." "I know. Everyone knows. The board wants you to lead our recovery. They believe you have the necessary skills." "Funny. 3 years ago you said I didn't have enough experience. You know very well why things are like this between us." "Actually, I don't." "Why don't you explain it to me?" At this moment, Richard realizes that Michael has never directly confronted the paternity issue. He's being forced to admit not only that he needs his son, but that all his behavior was based on cowardice and shame. Because when I look at you, I see everything I should have been and never was." Michael finally decides to break decades of silence. "My mother told me everything before she died. About you, about the agreement, about the money. You know what she told me? That I should be proud to be your son, not despite who you are, but because of who I chose to become." You always knew?" "Always. And I worked here not to prove something to you, but to prove to myself that I could be better than the circumstances of my origin. I destroyed everything, my company, my marriage, my relationship with you. You might not have destroyed everything yet." Michael agrees to lead the company's recovery, but with conditions: complete transparency, ethical governance, and Richard submitting to a full audit of his practices. In the following months, Michael works tirelessly. He restructures operations, implements rigorous compliance policies, and uses his renewable energy expertise to position Caldwell Industries as a leader in corporate sustainability. The transformation is remarkable. The company not only recovers but becomes stronger and more respected than ever. Michael is promoted to executive vice president, and his ethical leadership restores investor confidence. Richard, humiliated but finally learning, begins working on his own redemption. He publicly pleads guilty, accepts legal penalties, and initiates a restitution program for communities affected by his illegal practices. A year later, Michael is on the cover of the same Forbes that previously celebrated Richard, but this time as the youngest CEO to revolutionize a company in crisis. Richard, now working as a junior consultant at the very company he founded, watches his son command a board meeting. There's no more resentment in his eyes, just genuine pride mixed with deep regret. The real karma wasn't Richard's downfall, but having to watch his son become the ethical man he himself never managed to be, using exactly the principles Richard preached publicly but never practiced. Guys, if you're rooting for this son like I am, hit that like button. And if you want more karma stories like this, subscribe to the channel because I have several that will make you believe justice really does exist. The story ends with a powerful scene. Michael, now interim CEO, finds Richard cleaning out his old executive office. "You don't need to do this. I can call someone from cleaning." "No. I need to do this. It's the least I can do." "Dad, there's still time to build something real." It's the first time Michael calls him Dad. Richard stops, emotional, and for the first time in 30 years, hugs his son, not as a CEO hugging an employee, but as a father finally recognizing the extraordinary man his son became despite all the obstacles he himself created. Sometimes, the greatest success comes not from where you were born, but from who you choose to become. And true karma isn't destruction, it's giving someone the chance to watch you be greater than they ever dreamed of being.